The emergency lights bathed the Galactic Council chamber in blood-red darkness. 12 species sat in their designated seats watching the screens in silence. Earth was burning. Ambassador Kelrin of the Torth Collective leaned forward, his 4 eyes reflecting the flames on the display. Cities that had stood for centuries were now craters. The orbital bombardment had been going for 6 hours. Nothing could survive what the Kresh Dominion was doing to humanity's homeworld. Should we intervene? Someone asked from the lower seats. High Chancellor Mrivok, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish wrapped in gold ribbons, spoke with a voice like grinding metal. The Council voted 3 cycles ago. Humanity's expansion violated the treaty. They built ships in restricted zones. They ignored our warnings, but genocide? The small voice belonged to Representative Pila, one of the few species that had traded peacefully with humans. The Kresh are simply enforcing council law, Mrivok said, though his tone suggested he didn't believe his own words. Humanity knew the consequences. On the main screen, the Kresh flagship emerged from Earth's smoke-filled atmosphere. It was a monster of a ship, 5 kilometers long, covered in weapons that still glowed hot from use. The transmission came through moments later. Commander Zhal's face filled every screen in the chamber. He was reptilian, with scales that shifted between green and black. His eyes were cold and victorious. Attention, Galactic Council. The human pest has been eliminated. Their fleets are destroyed. Their world is ash. Let this serve as a reminder of what happens to species that forget their place. The transmission ended. The chamber remained silent. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the same broadcast from the bridge of the damaged cruiser Defiant. Around her, the bridge was chaos. Sparks flew from broken consoles. 3 crew members lay dead at their stations. The ship shook as another Kresh fighter made a pass, its weapons tearing into the hull. Shields at 4%, Lieutenant Marcus reported, blood running down his face from a cut above his eye. We can't take another hit. Sarah stared at the tactical display. 2,000 human ships had been at the Proxima Junction 3 hours ago. Now the display showed only 17 green dots, 17 ships out of 2,000. The ambush had been perfect. The Kresh had known exactly where humanity's colonial fleet would be. Someone told them, Sarah said quietly. Someone on the council gave them our position. Admiral, we need to jump now, Marcus urged. Before they finish us. Sarah looked at the data chip clutched in her hand. It had cost 47 lives to get this intelligence from the dying wreck of the battleship Prometheus. Captain Rodriguez had transmitted it with his last breath, screaming coordinates and codes through the static. Set course for grid reference X-ray 77 Delta, Sarah ordered. That's deep space, Marcus said, confused. There's nothing there. That's what everyone thinks, Sarah replied. Engage jump drives, now! The Defiant lurched as the hyperspace engines activated. Space twisted around them, and the burning wreck of the Proxima Junction vanished. They jumped into darkness, leaving behind the massacre. Back in the council chamber, the delegates were leaving. Some looked relieved, others looked troubled. Ambassador Kelrin stopped at the exit and turned back to look at the screens. Earth's surface was still visible, glowing orange and red from the fires. They were becoming too strong, Mrivok said, floating beside him. In another 50 years, humans would have challenged us for control of the council. This was necessary, was it? Kelrin asked. I studied human history before they reached the stars. They have a saying, you can kill a man, but you cannot kill an idea. Humanity was never just about Earth. Their colonies are being hunted as we speak, Mrivok said dismissively. Mars, Titan, Europa, the settlements on Alpha Centauri. The Kresh are thorough. Within a month, humanity will be nothing but a footnote in galactic history. Kelrin said nothing. He had visited human colonies before. He had seen their cities, their farms, their schools. He had seen how they built homes on worlds that other species called impossible to inhabit. He had seen their museums, filled with artifacts from 1,000 wars they had fought against themselves and somehow survived. I hope you are right, Kelrin said finally. Because if you are wrong, if even a small number of them survive what happened today, they will remember. And humans never forget. The Defiant dropped out of hyperspace in a region of space that navigation charts marked as empty. Sarah stood and walked to the viewport. At first, she saw nothing but stars and darkness. Then the lights appeared. Hundreds of them. Space stations hidden in asteroid fields. Ships docked inside hollowed-out moons. And there, in the center of it all, a massive construction yard that had been building in secret for 50 years. My God, Marcus whispered, standing beside her. How many? Enough, Sarah said, touching the cold glass of the viewport. Earth was gone. The fleet was destroyed. The Council had abandoned them. But humanity had prepared for this exact moment. They had prepared for extinction. A transmission came through. An old voice, rough with age but still strong. Defiant, this is Haven 7 Command. Welcome home, Admiral. We've been waiting for you. We have much work to do. Sarah closed her eyes and let herself feel the grief for just one moment. Earth, her Earth. Then she opened her eyes and straightened her. Uniform, this isn't over, she said quietly. They think they won. They're wrong. 5 years had passed since Earth burned. In the Galactic Council chambers, the delegates had long stopped talking about humanity. The Kresh Dominion had submitted the official report declaring all human colonies destroyed. The matter was closed. Humanity was history. But in the darkness between stars, a different story was being written. The ice moon orbited a gas giant that no species had ever bothered to name. It was too far from any trade route, too cold, too worthless. Beneath 3 kilometers of ice in caverns that had been carved out over decades, 10 million humans lived and worked. Chen Wei guided his daughter through the hydroponic gardens, her small hand warm in his. She had been born here in the deep places and had never seen a real sky. The ceiling above them was rock and ice, but the plants grew tall under the artificial lights. Tell me about Earth again. Papa, May said, looking up at him with eyes that had never seen sunlight. Chen Wei smiled sadly. He had been a farmer on Mars when the word came. Earth was gone. The evacuation protocols had activated, and he had 48 hours to reach the designated coordinates. He had made it with his wife and unborn daughter. Millions of others had not. Earth had a sky that was blue, he told her, as he always did, and water fell from that sky like tears. We called it rain. The plants grew in soil, not hydroponic tanks, and at night you could see the moon white and bright watching over everything. I wish I could have seen it, May said. Maybe you will, Chen Wei told her. Maybe someday we will take it back. Across the galaxy, in the burning heart of a nebula that radiation made impassable for most species, another human colony thrived. The settlers had built their homes inside asteroids, connected by tunnels and shielded corridors. They mined rare minerals that the nebula's radiation had created. They built ships. They trained soldiers. Commander James Park reviewed the latest reports in his office carved from stone. New arrivals had come through the secret jump gate last week, refugees from a colony the Kresh had found. Only 500 had escaped out of 20,000. We're up to 8 billion now, his second-in-command reported. Lieutenant Sarah Kim was young, born 2 years after Earth's fall. She had grown up knowing nothing but the hidden places. The latest census just came in from all the havens. 8 billion, James repeated. The Council thinks we're extinct. The Kresh think they won. And we have 8 billion people spread across 200 hidden colonies. The diaspora protocol worked, Sarah said. Your great-grandmother was a genius for thinking of it. James looked at the picture on his desk. Admiral Chen Park, his great-grandmother, who had died 3 years ago of old age. She had been the one to see the coordinates and understand what humanity had been building. She had been the one to unite the scattered survivors. She had been the one to tell them all, be patient, build strength, remember. She always said that humanity's greatest strength was our paranoia, James said. We plan for the worst because we've lived through it so many times. On the Council flagship Eternal Wisdom, Ambassador Kelrin reviewed classified reports that made his blood run cold. Over the past year, there had been incidents. Strange ones. A Kresh supply convoy had gone missing near the outer veil. No distress signal. No wreckage. Just gone. Then another convoy. Then 3 Kresh patrol ships. Then a small outpost on a mining colony. The Kresh blamed pirates. The Council accepted the explanation. But Kelrin had been collecting data, and the pattern was clear. Every incident happened in regions near where human colonies had once existed. Every incident showed signs of military precision, not random pirate attacks. He opened a secure channel to an old friend, one of the few he trusted. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to researcher Ven, a being from a species that valued truth above politics. I need you to investigate something, Kelrin said, quietly. I need to know if humanity truly went extinct 5 years ago. Ven's 3 eyes blinked in sequence. That's a dangerous question, old friend. Why ask it now? Because I don't believe in ghosts, Kelrin replied. And ships don't vanish without a reason. At Haven 7, the massive shipyard that had been building in secret for a century, the first of the new warships was nearing completion. It didn't look like the old human vessels. It was sleeker, faster, and incorporated technology from a dozen different species. Human engineers had spent 5 years studying every piece of alien tech they could steal. Salvage or trade for Admiral Sarah Chen, now gray-haired and bearing scars from the war, walked through the construction bay with the lead engineer. The ship stretched out before them, a kilometer of weapons and armor and fury. How many more can we build? Sarah asked. We have 6 more shipyards like this one, the engineer replied. Hidden in dead star systems inside asteroid fields, places no one looks. We can produce 1 ship every 3 months from each yard. In 2 years we'll have a fleet of 50. Not enough to face the crash directly, Sarah said. No, the engineer agreed, but enough to make them bleed. Enough to remind them that we exist. Sarah placed her hand on the cold metal of the ship's hull. Somewhere out there, Earth was still burning. The crash occupied it now, mining its resources, using it as a trophy to show other species what happened when you defied them. But they had made a mistake. They thought destroying Earth meant destroying humanity. They didn't understand that humans had been dying and coming back for thousands of years. They didn't understand that you can't kill an idea, and humanity was the idea that refused to die. What are you going to call her? The engineer asked. Sarah smiled, and it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who had lost everything and found something harder than grief in its place. Revenge, she said. We're going to call her Revenge, and she's going to be the first of many. 10 years after Earth's fall, Commander Jal received a report that should have been impossible. 3 of his supply ships had vanished in the outer reaches. No distress signals, no debris. They were simply gone. Pirates, his second officer suggested, standing at attention in the command center of the Kresh flagship Dominator. Pirates leave wreckage, Jal said, his scales darkening with irritation. Pirates take cargo and flee. They don't make military vessels disappear without a trace. Perhaps they hit reactor cores, the officer tried. A lucky shot that destroyed everything. Jal turned his cold eyes on the younger Kresh. 3 times? 3 lucky shots? Don't insult my intelligence. The truth was worse than pirates. The truth was something Jal refused to say aloud because it was impossible. Humanity was dead. He had burned their world himself. He had watched their fleets die at Proxima Junction. The Council had certified their extinction. But deep in his mind, in a place he tried to ignore, Jal remembered something a human prisoner had said before dying. The human had been bleeding out. Half his body burned from plasma fire, and he had smiled with red teeth and whispered, "We're everywhere. You'll see." Captain Maria Santos guided her ship through the debris field with practiced ease. The Wraith was small, designed for stealth rather than direct combat. Her crew of 30 were all veterans, people who had been soldiers before Earth fell and had become something else afterward. They called themselves hunters now. Target acquired, her navigator reported. Kresh transport lightly armed, carrying weapons to their outpost on Meridian 4. Maria studied the scan data. The transport was alone, probably thinking this deep space route was safe. The Kresh had grown arrogant in the 10 years since their victory. They owned 40% of known space now. They thought they were untouchable. "Jam their communications," Maria ordered. "I want them blind before they know we're here." The Wraith moved like a shadow. The Kresh transport never saw them coming. The first missile took out their engine. The second destroyed their communication array. The third breached their cargo hold, venting atmosphere and weapons into space. "Any survivors?" Maria asked. "Negative," sensors reported. The breach killed the crew. Maria felt nothing. She had felt nothing since watching the videos of Earth burning. Some part of her had died that day, and what remained was focused on a single purpose. Make them pay. Make them all pay. "Salvage what we can," she ordered. "Then scatter the wreckage. Make it look like a reactor malfunction." "Should we leave a message?" her weapons officer asked. He was young, born on Mars before the war. He still had anger. Maria envied him that. "No messages," Maria said. "Ghosts don't leave messages. We just make them disappear." The Galactic Council finally called an emergency session after the 15th incident. High Chancellor Muravok floated in his chamber, surrounded by angry delegates demanding answers. "The Kresh Dominion has lost 23 ships in 6 months," Ambassador Kelrin stated. his voice cutting through the noise. That's more than they lost in their last war, and yet they claim it's random mechanical failures and pirate attacks. Are you suggesting otherwise? Mirivok asked carefully. Kelrin activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with red dots marking each incident. They formed a pattern, a ring around the former human territories. I'm suggesting that someone is hunting the Kresh, Kelrin said. Someone with military training, advanced ships, and intimate knowledge of Kresh supply routes. Impossible, the Kresh ambassador hissed. He was Jal's cousin, appointed to the council as a reward for the extermination of humanity. Humans are extinct. We made sure of it. Did you? Kelrin asked quietly. Did you visit every human colony? Did you find every ship, every station, every settlement they ever built? Humanity spread across 100 worlds in 2 centuries. Are you absolutely certain you found them all? The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Kelrin noticed that some delegates looked uncomfortable, while others looked calculating. They were wondering what it might mean if humanity had survived. They were wondering what humans might do with 10 years of rage and nothing to lose. Commander Jal received the report on his private terminal, the one that didn't go through official channels. One of his patrol groups had encountered something in the void sector. They had fought it for 3 minutes before it jumped away, but in those 3 minutes they had gotten visual scans. The ship was human, not the old human ships they had destroyed at Proxima Junction. This was new, sleek, incorporating technology from multiple species. It had weapons that shouldn't exist, shields that absorbed their fire without buckling, and painted on its hull in the old Earth language of English was a single word: remember. Jal felt something he hadn't felt in years: fear, not for himself, but for what this meant. If humans were alive and building ships like that, how many more were there? How long had they been preparing? He sent the report to the council with a single line of commentary. We may have made a mistake. Admiral Sarah Chen received the combat reports from 40 different Ghost Fleet vessels. They were spread across the galaxy now, hitting Kresh targets in coordinated strikes. Each ship operated independently, following a plan she had laid out over years. Never engage directly. Always retreat before reinforcements arrive. Make them afraid of the dark spaces between stars. Make them understand that humanity remembers. Her second-in-command, Commander James Park, entered her office on Haven 7. He looked exhausted but satisfied. The Kresh are requesting an emergency council session, he reported. They want help hunting us down. They're calling us terrorists. Sarah laughed, but it was a bitter sound. Terrorists. We're the terrorists, not the species that committed genocide, not the ones who burned Earth and killed 15 billion people. The council might help them, James warned. Let them try, Sarah said. She activated a display showing all 200 hidden colonies, all 6 secret shipyards, all 8 billion humans who had spent 10 years preparing for the moment they would stop hiding. We've been bleeding them for months, Sarah continued, making them paranoid, making them waste resources chasing ghosts. But that was just the opening move. It's time for them to learn that humanity isn't just alive. She pulled up the tactical plans for the next phase. James studied them and felt a cold smile cross his face. When do we start? He asked. Tomorrow, Sarah said. Tomorrow we stop being ghosts? Tomorrow we show them what humans do when you back us into a corner. We don't surrender. We don't negotiate. We come back stronger, angrier, and ready to burn down everyone who thought they could kill us. She looked at the star map, at the red dot that marked the Sol system. Earth was still there, still occupied by Kresh forces. It's time to go home, Sarah said softly. And God help anyone who gets in our way. 15 years after Earth burned, the Galactic Council faced a truth they could no longer ignore. The emergency session was packed with delegates from every member species. Security had been tripled. Everyone knew this meeting would change everything. Commander Jal stood at the center of the chamber, his scales pale with barely controlled rage. Behind him, holographic displays showed the devastation of the past 5 years. Destroyed outposts, missing ships, supply lines cut. The Kresh Dominion was bleeding from 1,000 small wounds. The Council must act, Jal demanded. We face an enemy that strikes from shadows, an enemy that refuses to fight with honor. The human remnants must be found and eliminated permanently this time. High Chancellor Mirvok floated in his elevated position, his golden ribbons dim with concern. You ask us to commit resources to hunt scattered pirates. The Council has many concerns beyond your security issues. Pirates. Giles' voice rose to a roar. These are not pirates. These are military vessels organized and coordinated. In the last month alone, they hit 15 of our positions simultaneously across 3 sectors. That requires planning, intelligence, and numbers we were told did not exist. Ambassador Kelrin rose from his seat. His 4 eyes met Giles' cold stare without flinching. Perhaps the Council would be more sympathetic if you explained how humanity, a species you claim to have completely exterminated, managed to field a fleet large enough to threaten the mighty Kresh Dominion. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Other delegates began calling out questions. How many humans had survived? Where had they been hiding? Most importantly, why hadn't the Kresh finished the job properly? Giles felt the room turning against him. The Council gave us permission to eliminate the human threat 15 years ago. We acted with your blessing. If survivors exist, it's because some species provided them shelter. That accusation landed like a bomb. Mrivok's ribbons flashed bright with anger. Are you suggesting Council members harbored humans? I'm saying someone helped them survive, Giles said. Someone gave them supplies, technology, safe harbor. Humans couldn't have built new ships without help. Researcher Ven, Kelrin's old friend, stood and activated his datapad. I've been investigating this matter privately for 3 years. With the Chancellor's permission, I'd like to share my findings. Mrivok gestured for him to continue. Ven projected his research for all to see. It showed trade records, suspicious gaps in supply manifests, and unauthorized technology transfers. 3 Council species have been secretly trading with human colonies for the past 12 years, Ven announced. The Torth Collective provided advanced sensors. The Yellen Union sold them shield generators, and the Praxis Confederation traded ship components for rare minerals that only humans were crazy enough to mine from dangerous nebulas. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted accusations at each other. Some demanded immediate sanctions. Others defended the right to trade freely. The careful politics of the Council collapsed in minutes. Ambassador Kelrin didn't join the shouting. He simply watched as everything fell apart, exactly as he had predicted it would years ago. The debate raged for 6 hours. When the dust settled, a grim reality faced them all. The Kresh Dominion demanded the Council provide military support to eliminate humanity permanently. The species that had traded with humans argued they had done nothing illegal since humans were never officially under Council sanctions, just abandoned after the Kresh attacked. Then the transmission came. Every screen in the Council chamber suddenly went black. Security tried to shut it down, but whatever was broadcasting had power beyond their ability to stop. A woman's face appeared. She was old, with gray hair and scars that told stories of violence, but her eyes were sharp and cold as space itself. Honorable delegates of the Galactic Council, Admiral Sarah Chen said, her voice calm and clear. My name is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human United Forces. I understand you're debating whether to help the Kresh finish what they started 15 years ago. I'd like to offer an alternative proposal. Giles hissed in fury. Kill the transmission. Where is she broadcasting from? Everywhere, Ven said quietly, studying his instruments. The signal is bouncing from 40 different relay points across the galaxy. They planned this carefully. Sarah continued speaking. The Kresh Dominion destroyed Earth. They killed 15 billion people. They thought this would end humanity. They were wrong. We survived. We rebuilt. And for 10 years we've been reminding them that we exist. But we're tired of playing in the shadows. She leaned forward, and every delegate felt the weight of her stare. Here's our offer. Help us retake Earth and we'll stop attacking Kresh positions. Refuse and we'll continue bleeding them until their empire collapses. But understand this. We're not asking for permission anymore. We're telling you what's going to happen. You have no authority here, Mrivok shouted. You're not even a recognized species anymore. Then recognize us, Sarah said simply. Or watch what happens when you ignore 8 billion angry humans with nothing left to lose. The transmission showed live footage from space. Hundreds of human ships were dropping out of hyperspace in Kresh territory. They weren't attacking yet, just appearing, showing their numbers. It was a demonstration of force that made several delegates gasp. You don't have that many ships, Giles said, but his voice shook. It's impossible. We've had 15 years, Sarah replied. 15 years to build. 15 years to prepare. 15 years to remember what you did to us. Did you really think we'd waste that time? She keyed another command and new images appeared. Hidden colonies showing their locations for the first time, shipyards that had been building in secret for decades. 8 billion human faces, young and old, all staring at the council with the same expression of defiance. "Vote however you want," Sarah said. "But know this. With or without your help, we're going home. We're taking back Earth. And if the Kresh want to stop us, they're welcome to try. We remember what happens when people try to kill us." "We get stronger." The transmission ended. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then Marivok called for a vote. Support humanity's claim to Earth and provide limited aid, or refuse and let the matter resolve itself through warfare. The vote was close. Several species voted immediately to help the Kresh. Others voted to support humanity. In the end, it came down to one delegate. Ambassador Kelrin sat quietly, knowing his vote would decide the outcome. He thought about the human colonies he had visited before the war. He thought about their children, their hope, their stubborn refusal to accept limits. He thought about what they had survived and what they had become. "I vote to support humanity," Kelrin said. "May the ancestors forgive me if I'm wrong." The chamber erupted again. Jal stood frozen, realizing what this meant. The council had fractured. The careful balance of power was broken, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, humans were coming home. 20 years after Earth burned, the largest fleet in galactic history assembled at the edge of the Sol system. 3,000 human vessels formed the center, their hulls painted with names of dead cities and lost colonies. Around them floated ships from 7 council species who had chosen to honor the alliance. Even a few Kresh vessels were there, rebels who refused to follow Commander Zhal's orders anymore. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship Resilience, looking at the tactical display. Ahead of them, Earth waited. The Kresh had turned humanity's homeworld into a fortress. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. The moon hosted a military base with 50,000 soldiers. Mars was now a staging ground for Kresh operations across the sector. "They knew we'd come," Commander James Park said beside her. He had grown into his role over the years, becoming Sarah's most trusted officer. "They've had months to prepare since the council vote." "They've had 20 years to prepare," Sarah corrected. "From the moment they burned our world, they should have known we'd return. But they didn't believe we could." "That's their weakness. They never believed." The communication officer turned from her station. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Kresh Command. It's Commander Zhal himself." "Put him through," Sarah ordered. Zhal's scaled face appeared on the screen. He looked older, more tired, but his eyes still burned with the same cold hatred. "Admiral Chen, I should have killed you at Proxima Junction all those years ago." "You tried," Sarah replied. "You failed. That seems to be a pattern with you." "You cannot win this battle," Zhal said. "I have 200 orbital platforms, defensive satellites, and a fleet of 700 ships waiting in reserve. You'll break against our defenses like waves against stone." Sarah smiled, and it was terrible to see. "You still don't understand us, do you? You think this is about winning. You think we care about casualties or cost? We don't. This is about going home. This is about showing every species in the galaxy that you can't kill humanity. We'll pay any price for that." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. I'm not going to lie to you. Many of us won't survive what comes next. The Kresh are dug in deep. They're going to make us bleed for every meter we take. But I want you to remember why we're here. Remember Earth. Remember everyone we lost. Remember that 20 years ago they thought they ended us. Today we show them they were wrong." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew. Some were old like her, veterans of the first fall. Others were young, born in the hidden colonies who had never seen Earth except in pictures. All of them wore the same expression of determination. "We're not here for revenge," Sarah said quietly. "We're here to prove something. We're here to prove that humanity doesn't end. That you can burn our cities and kill our billions, but the idea of us, the stubborn, stupid, beautiful idea that humans refuse to die, that lives forever. So let's go home. Let's show them what we're made of." The fleet surged forward. The Kresh orbital platforms opened fire immediately, space filled with weapons fire, missiles, and dying ships. The human vessels pushed through, taking losses, replacing fallen ships with others that moved forward without hesitation. Sarah watched the tactical display as her fleet crashed against Earth's defenses like a tidal wave. Ships exploded, platforms fell. The Kresh defense fleet emerged from behind the moon, and the real battle began. For 3 hours they fought. The space around Earth became a graveyard. Human ships used tactics that terrified their allies. They rammed platforms when they ran out of missiles. They positioned themselves as shields for other vessels. They fought with a fury that made even hardened warriors step back in shock. Captain Maria Santos, commanding the Wraith, led a strike group directly at the Kresh flagship. Jal's vessel was massive, powerful, designed to be indestructible. Maria didn't care. Her ship was faster. She danced through defensive fire, her crew working with practiced precision. "Lock all missiles on target," she ordered. "Set reactor to overload. 30-second timer." Her weapons officer looked at her in shock. "Captain, that's suicide." "I know," Maria said calmly. "Evacuate all crew to escape pods now, that's an order." They argued, but she was absolute. 27 of her crew made it to pods. Maria stayed on the bridge alone, guiding her ship on its final run. The Wraith accelerated, dodging fire, closing the distance to Jal's flagship. In the last second before impact, Maria activated the fleet-wide channel. "For Earth," she said quietly. The Wraith hit the flagship's engine section at full speed with its reactor in critical overload. The explosion was visible from 3 planets away. When the light faded, Jal's flagship was broken in half, its crew dead, including the commander who had started this war 20 years ago. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the flagship die and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, just tired acceptance that this was the price of going home. "Defensive platforms are falling," James reported. "The fleet is breaking through. We can land ground forces." "Do it," Sarah ordered.
"Take back our world."
"Every city, every mountain, every ocean. Take it all back." The ground war lasted 3 months. Humans fought with everything they had. The Council allies helped, but even they were shocked at the intensity. Humans didn't just fight for territory. They fought for every street that held memories, every building where their ancestors had lived, every park where children had played. The Kresh soldiers, demoralized by the death of Jal and the ferocity of the human assault, began surrendering in large groups. Some fought to the end, others fled off-world. By the end of the 3rd month, Earth was free. Admiral Sarah Chen didn't live to see it. She had led one final ground assault on New York, the city where she had been born 83 years ago. She had taken a plasma round protecting a group of young soldiers who still had their whole lives ahead of them. She died quickly, surrounded by people who called her a hero. Commander James Park became the new admiral. He stood in the ruins of what had once been Central Park, now just burned ground and broken trees. Beside him stood a young girl named Mei Chen-wei, granddaughter of the farmer who had fled to the ice moons. She had never seen Earth before. "Is this really it?" Mei asked, looking at the devastation around them. "Is this really Earth?" "It will be again," James promised. He handed her a small tree seedling, something they had brought from the ice moon colony where she was born. "Plant it. Start the healing." Mei knelt and dug a hole in the ash-covered ground. She placed the tree carefully, covered its roots, and watered it with a bottle of water from the supply ship. It looked small and fragile against the ruins of the once great city, but it was alive, just like humanity. 6 months later, the Galactic Council convened a special session. They had a new item on their agenda, a formal recognition vote for humanity's return to the galactic community. The vote was complicated by the fact that humans had just proven they could fight a major power to a standstill. Ambassador Kelrin proposed a new classification. "I move that humanity be recognized with special status. They have proven something remarkable. They have proven that they cannot be eliminated. I suggest we classify them as species incapable of extinction." The vote passed. Humanity was officially back. On Earth and 1,000 cities being rebuilt, in colonies scattered across 200 worlds, humans received the news. Some celebrated, some cried. Most just went back to work, rebuilding what they had lost. In the ruins of New York, May's tree had grown 3 centimeters. It would take decades before Central Park was green again. It would take generations before Earth recovered. But humanity had time. They had survived the impossible. They had come back from extinction. They had proven that you could burn their world, kill their billions, scatter them across the stars, and they would still come home. Admiral James Park stood beside that small tree one evening and thought about Sarah Chen, about all those who died taking back Earth. He thought about the long road ahead, the rebuilding, the healing. "We made it," he said softly to the ghosts of the fallen. "We made it home, and somewhere in the stars above, in hidden colonies and secret stations that would never be revealed. 8 billion humans looked toward Earth and knew that they had proven something the galaxy would never forget. You cannot kill an idea. You cannot extinguish hope, and you cannot, ever under any circumstances, completely destroy humanity. They thought it was over. It wasn't, it never would be.